Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Dad to Dads podcast. And today I have an old friend, Javin Foreman. Javin, welcome back to the show.
Oh man, it feels good to be back, man. Back at like my second home here behind this screen talking to you.
That's too much. No, man, we had a good time last time, and I appreciate you coming back on. And definitely great reception to you being on. And, I think it brought awareness to a lot, and I just appreciate you coming back on.
Absolutely, man. You're doing some really, really important work, man. Just, spreading knowledge, spreading the message, and motivating people, man. So I appreciate the work you're doing.
Well, I thank you. And before we go into everything, a little background on you. The project manager for the Gentle Warriors Academy, correct?
Yep, at Fathers Incorporated for sure.
At Fathers Incorporated. Tell us just a quick summary again about your upbringing in Chicago and just real quick kind of go through that.
Yeah, cool. Yes, born and raised south side of Chicago. Grew up on the south side with my mom and my dad. They got divorced when I was about 12 years old, but had a really cool relationship. I'd spend, a week or 2 weeks off and on between my parents. So what I say, I had a really, really good upbringing, nice friend and family circle, that kind of gave me the moral compass now that I carry with me into the world as I do the work I do and raise my own family.
There you go. Javin, I think there's some things we have in common, and one of those being I think we're both very, very passionate about being a father,
For sure.
Being the best dad that we can be. And, I see that with your children. I see it with what you're doing outside of your children with Fathers Incorporated. We have numerous conversations about being a father, being a dad, and especially around fatherlessness. And, we'll send stuff back and forth, text on different things. And you had sent me something, an interview, and, which led us to discussions. And I'm just going to throw it out there. There's really no, I don't have any structure to this episode, but I'm going to throw it out there to you. Your opinion, what do you think is the biggest challenge right now facing fathers, and especially fathers of color?
Yeah, so I think in general, I think it has to do with kind of perception. I still think we're way, way behind in general when we talk about fathers in general and the importance of fathers. Like even with this work we're doing with Fathers Incorporated, I always talk to our CEO, Kenneth Bryce. I said we're about 15 years ahead of where stuff will go. We just never have had this conversation as a society on how important fathers actually are. And we joke about it. I think we talked about it before, but, dads getting socks for Christmas and this sort of thing. It's just kind of this thing for whatever reason. Sometimes when you're supposedly the bigger person or, you look like you can take a lot of pain, you can take things, you're kind of brushed off and, kind of pushed to the side. But I think we're at this place now in society where we just can't let this happen anymore. We have to recognize, even if it hurts other people's feelings for whatever reason, on the importance of fathers being present, having an opportunity to provide what they can for their own children. It's critical. So I think we're at that place now where, we got to either make this right turn or stay where we are. And, we see where we're heading as a society.
I think that's so true. Very true. I'm gonna laugh. You're talking about Christmas. I've been talking to the boys since before Thanksgiving about Christmas. What do you want? What do you want? Give me ideas. And I don't know how your children are, but mine have no idea what they want, and of course they wait to the last minute. Mm-hmm. Last night we're on the way to the ball game, which you were at, and my oldest looks at me and goes, "Oh, Dad, are you wanting anything for Christmas?"
Right. As an afterthought, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't even thought about it. He's like, "Oh, well, you can't get on to us then. You can't tell us that we need to work on it." I'm like, well, that's the first time you brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can see the cycle, how they're sort of being trained themselves, in a sense, as young men being reared in this society to not think about their own needs, for us to not be as important, when it comes to men as important as, our counterparts are.
Yeah. So I want to, I want to dig into it more. Fathers definitely they're not as valued today, and they're not as big of a part. Don't play as big of a part as they did when we were younger. Now I'm a little bit older than you. I grew up 70s and 80s. I feel like the family, and you tell me, agree or disagree. I feel like the family unit is not what it was, and I mean, there's facts to back that up. But you tell me, is that?
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely some things that needed to change about, who men were as we go back and we look at some of these shows, and was the domineering, man who you couldn't say anything to, was emotional. He had to sit by himself, or, Archie Bunker types or whatever it might be. We had all these perception of fathers, and some of the stuff was sort of true. Or, we've seen Made Men, for example, where, guy goes and makes all the money, the wife is a stay-at-home. So there were some things that needed to change about, fatherhood and masculinity. But I think we just went too far with it, But absolutely, the structure has changed. I mean, the data shows you, particularly when you're talking about black households. You can see from 1950, 64% of people were married, and now you go down to today in 2019, it's 38% of black men and black women are married. So you can absolutely see where this thing is kind of broken down. And I think one of the things you see is, as time has gone on, people don't necessarily need each other in theory to survive and make it. That's one of the things that happened. One person could make enough of an income to do okay, and so it just got to the point like, why should I deal with somebody else in this structure? A lot of selfishness kind of kicked in.
Good point. Do they need? Yes. Do they need somebody else to raise a family? No. Can they make the money on their own? And, if you want to say, okay, can a mom make the money on her own and have children? Yes. Mm-hmm. But is that what is healthiest for the children? Agree or disagree? I say no, it's not. No. I feel that they need both parents actively involved. And, you talk about the divorce rate. Yeah, it's, divorce rate. And let me say this. We are not picking on any race. We're not picking on moms, any of that. We are very pro moms. Sure. Moms definitely are extremely valuable. And all we're doing is we're just kind of highlighting the data that is clear. But you talk about divorce by race. I mean, yeah, it's definitely gone up in, if you want to say, in the black community as well as in the Hispanic community. It has tripled. If you're looking back in the 60s to now, it's tripled, and almost tripled by 1 percentage point in the white community, which wow. That's interesting. And then you start going into, and you're looking at, children being, so 4 in 10 children, and this is the United States. So the United States has the highest rate of single mothers, of children being born out of wedlock, which is just amazing. Out of any developed country, they have the highest. And 4 in 10 children are born to unwed mothers, which is crazy.
Crazy.
And if you look at, and the highest rate is, while it's increased amongst everybody, the biggest increase is in the white community. Now it is the highest in black, but the biggest increase year over year since the 50s is in the black community. Is in the white community. That's the largest increase. And I'd love to have your thoughts on that.
So, I think we have to begin, when we think about our country, I think we have to begin to examine the messaging and the media that we're putting out there. I think they show, the really, sexy, attractive, single female, Sex in the City does what she wants to do, super liberated, has a great lifestyle, sleeps with who she wants to sleep with. There are consequences that come with that. You think about the black community, salacious rappers, who are putting these messages out. Oh, I'm this, I'm that, And so there are consequences behind it. Like, that's one of the big messages that we have with the guys that we serve. you'll be in that thing for 18 years, with this person that you barely knew, you barely had a relationship with per se, and I think a lot of it is the attitudes and beliefs that we're picking up from the media that's put out in this country. I think we have to be real about it. When you look at other countries, we can say communism and whatever it might be, but they're controlling that stuff because we know from a sociological, standpoint, that stuff is not good for us to consume. And so these messages are being passed on, they're being put in the water and people are drinking them. And so, the other thing I always think about is as we think about our children, there's certain things they don't know it, but the way they've seen it, right? So if you talk about, 4 and 10 right now, that's the only way they've seen it. So they really don't know. When I've seen most of my friends' parents were married, they see it as most of my friends' parents aren't married, or there's another friend that got a divorce, whose parents got a divorce. So it's kind of normalized now. So I think one of the solutions is I believe the government should begin to incentivize, people staying together, incentivize marriage, incentivize counseling, as a society to create a strong society. I mean, marriage is no question is the backbone of society. Now, if it's not marriage, now you at least have to figure out healthy co-parenting at the very least. Everybody's not going to stay together. Marriage is tough, right? But you at least have to figure out what healthy co-parenting looks like.
I love that, and I love that incentivizing. That's a point I wanted to make. If you look at since 1965, LBJ increased welfare substantially and started rewarding women, incentivizing them to have children and children out of wedlock. And by doing so, let me say this, incentivizing them financially. And those same incentives, if you're married, they go away. They're not there. If you get married, they're not there. But if you're a single mom, you are incentivized. And the other thing too, and you know this with the guys you work with, if a female has a baby from Roger and gets child support, and then she has one from Tom, let's just say she's getting $800 from Roger, she gets $800 from Tom, she has one from Bill, she gets $800 there. However, if she has another one from Bill, she doesn't get another $800.
Right.
That amount goes down. So they're incentivizing to have babies from multiple fathers, and that's wrong.
Absolutely.
And I think that has had a huge, I don't think there was a nefarious reason for putting these in place. These incentives. I think it was to help at the time, but I think it has been taken advantage of. And I love what you're saying about incentivizing parents, incentivizing staying together, because 100%. That's gone away.
Yep. And if we know if it's the backbone of our society, and what makes a healthy society, healthy economy, balanced children, I mean, it's the only way. And so agreeing, I don't think it was a nefarious thing either, when that policy was put in place. It's helped a lot of people, no question. People have taken steps up, from that and used it correctly. But you'll always have people who look at things like, this is a way for me to make it,
Yeah.
And then I think unintentionally also it's killed people's spirit. People need to work. People need an opportunity to express themselves spiritually. They need to work. They need something to do, someone to love. That's the 3 things they say. What is it? You need 3 things to keep going in life: something to do, someone to love, and I think it might be something to look forward to. You need those 3 things in life to survive and thrive, right? And so, I think you sort of dampen people's ability to be self-sufficient and self-actualized. Now, one of the things I will say, I've been a part of a bunch of programs, that were meant to, social service types programs. And I think one of the things that happen also is that you get people who administer these programs who just may not be the best and brightest talent also. So, why this thing is being administered, for example, as we think about, trying to solve youth crime, for example, when people throw their hands up in the air, the police know exactly who the kids are who are doing this stuff, right? They come into contact with them, you know what school they're in, or you have things that are happening at a school. You can say this kid is on the track to do this, how do you go about, dealing with whatever this young person's issue might be before it turns into something larger. So I just think people don't use data the way they should now. We're not really thinking about this thing holistically. Like, how do we really attack and solve this problem?
I totally agree. And I was telling you earlier about the conversation I had with the Amazon driver, and we were talking about some kids that had stolen a bunch of packages out of a Amazon van, and his first thing was about blaming the parents and that there isn't a dad. I think that is extremely true. I'm going to tell you a story. Last week, the boys and I were having dinner, and they were telling me, I was asking them how things were going at school, and they were telling me about different instances, with the good and the bad, and they were telling me about some of the things that have happened recently. They both had stories about, between classes, someone smoking pot in the classroom.
Wow.
In the actual in the classroom. And the boys know both of the kids that did this. And they were like, Dad, good kid, but just like good at the core, but just no structure, no, and so why do you think they're doing it? He said, probably, Dad, my oldest said, Dad, probably to get attention.
Yes.
Probably to get attention and probably to see what he could get away with. I said, yeah, probably wants somebody to say no. There's another kid, same age as my oldest and your oldest, went to school at the same elementary school, and he was talking about how the kid used to be such a good kid, quiet, but how he's gotten in such a bad crowd, and how he's stealing these these SIM cards, and breaking into different things and breaking into automobiles and just running with the wrong crowd. I'm gonna have you do a wild guess. What do you think the common denominator between all three of those are?
Yeah, I bet it's very little involvement with their fathers.
There's no dad involved in all three of them.
Yep.
No, absolutely no dad involved.
100%.
And this is not a race thing because there are different races amongst those. But there's no structure there. And so it's like, Dad, I asked the kids, I'm like, okay, so they're doing this and you're saying they're actually good kids. You're good kids. Why don't you do it? Well, we'll get in trouble. And I'm like, all right, let's say you didn't get in trouble. Let's say you didn't get in trouble at school. Let's say you didn't get suspended. Why don't you do it? And they're like laughing. They said, Dad, you wouldn't be very happy. And they said, you would be mad. And they know, like, yeah, you go, there's going to be some severe punishment. And I do think that is what we're missing. I think we've gotten away from it. And I know I harp on this a lot, but I think we've gotten away from that. And that is I guess my point is this. I was trying to highlight to the boys and the guy yesterday we were talking, and it's not, I don't really blame the kids that much. Did they go out and cause this? Yeah, but man, if you're not taught,
right,
and if there aren't repercussions, whether that's through, the judicial system, but especially at home,
right.
He told me he was, and I hate to keep talking, but he was telling me a story I thought was fascinating. He was saying that when he was a kid, he went into a store, him and his buddy, and he stole this little bitty toy soldier, and he got caught. And he said the person there, they called his parents. The store workers called his parents, and he said the whole time when his dad was there, he was furious, furious, and he did not want to go home. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to press charges. He said he's looking, he's thinking, I wish you would, because I don't want to go home.
Right.
And he said he got home. He said he looked like a cartoon character. He said he was running from his dad all around the room. Didn't want his dad kept saying that he was going to light him up. And he said, you know what? I didn't steal a thing. He said, I was a good kid. He said, that was it.
Yep.
And that's what we're missing.
Yeah, consequences. And life has consequences. So what you find is, you're able to continually evade consequences. It makes me think of a kid. I don't know if you heard this story happened in Atlanta. It's probably been about 3 months now, where the kid in Buckhead, it was a valet. I believe it was a valet right on Piedmont someplace, and he stole a car from a valet. He was breaking into cars, and a valet person came and confronted him. He shot the valet person. This was a kid that was in my program when I was over the Fulton
Oh,
County Juvenile Courthouse, man. And so I remembered as soon as I saw his picture, I was like, wait a second, because there was a manhunt for him for about 3 months, 2 months. He was evading the police. I was like, man, this kid looks so familiar, Randy. I'm looking, and so I looked up in my old notes, and I found he was a kid who was in my program. I could never get him to come. He only came maybe one time to one of my sessions I did. He was a single mom, and I don't want to bash the single moms because Lord knows, man, they're up to here and trying to maintain a
agree.
household and just do what they can, and then still live lives. And I think that's the other thing that happens, with a single mom. Imagine that you're trying to date still, you're trying to find a mate, you have a new man that you're trying to cater to and build a relationship, you're trying to work. Lord knows, man, it's so tough, that lack of stability. But this kid threw away. So originally he was there stealing cars, breaking the cars, and you could just see the chain of events happen. When he first stopped coming he was there initially for breaking in the cars. The next year he was never coming. I could never get, I would talk to his mom periodically, what's happening with him. He made the news before. He was way out somewhere south, I can't remember it was, but got into a shootout with the police. Him and another kid or something like that. Got into a stole another stolen car issue till he went up to this place and took somebody's life. So that's something that could be stopped right there. Put your finger in the dam right there when he steals the toy soldier when you see it. But I see the moms crying out for help and saying, where are the mentors? There are no mentor programs around, and it's so true. Black men, we're the least ones to actually mentor. As much as our young people need mentors, we are the fewest, mentors that are out there. But we can think about why. We're as
Yeah,
a
why
people,
is that?
yeah, we're on the lowest totem of the economic scale. So same thing. Black men are trying to make it too. So you like, man, I probably don't have anything to offer this kid, or I'm working 2 jobs. I see it. We had to do virtual with my fatherhood program because these guys are working, man. They're working around the clock in some cases. We got guys that take our classes while driving trucks. So people are just so exhausted, but we have to find a way, to do it. And so what I've seen, some of the best mentors I've seen may not necessarily be black people. I've seen some awesome white people come over and mentor kids, and they learn along the way also. And it's for that young person, it's exposure also, but I think everyone has to, to kind of put something in the pot if we're going to solve this. But it starts with identifying who the young people are. It would already be a major issue by the time they come to court. They're in court, whatever it might be, child support or whatever it might be, whatever issues are happening. I try to give those two people as many wraparound services as I could, incentivize them. If you're not filing TPOs against each other, if you're not violating the visitation orders, maybe you get some kind of incentive at the end of the year. I'm able to get feedback on what's happening in the household, how things are working out. If you finish this parenting class, you get $500. A co-parenting class, you get $1,000. Incentivize this thing so that we can get people, because it's just knowledge and it's just information. People just need the information, a new perspective, a new way to look at things. And one thing we do know is everybody's trying to make it. So a few dollars here and there, or some types of incentive would help people, make better, healthy choices.
I agree. You just have to be careful with how you totally agree, but you have to be careful with how you structure that so it's not taken advantage of.
For sure.
Because as you said earlier, people can find a way to cheat the system. And you said something else. I totally agree. Look, single moms. I mean, my dad died when I was 10, and it was a single mom raising my sister and I, and she had her hands more than full of trying to raise us. She was a wonderful mom. Um, Gave us everything we needed. We didn't have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed. and overwhelmed us with love and support as well, which I think is the most important. I think where I have an issue, it's where the moms look. Some moms are thrust into a position that they should not be in, that they never asked to be in, and there are some, despicable or guys that just don't man up. They're willing to have sex, and let's just say they're willing to have sex, nutting a female, and then not willing to take the responsibility. But where I have the issue, it's where the moms are where the females will use the system or to use having babies for their financial gain. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where I have a issue with that. And it's more of looking at the children as a revenue stream, as an income source.
And even beyond that part, sometimes they're used as kind of an emotional frisbee. It's a way for me to punish this man because in some cases he didn't want to be with me, or the relationship didn't work out. I don't like who he shows that he is at this point, right? So I think that's the most dangerous person. We have the term deadbeat dad. We don't even have a term, toxic man. We don't even have a term for a woman who's irresponsible, is not having her business. Women can opt out. The other thing that's crazy, women can opt out of parenthood, right? They can put a child up for adoption. A man can't opt out.
True.
If he decides, I don't want to be with this woman, I don't want to have that child. You told me you're pregnant. I don't want to have that child. He does not have the right to opt out, right? And I wouldn't want to use it as a cop-out, but we just have to look at these things, and we have to look at the emotional toil that it takes on men. I've seen very few men, this deadbeat dad thing, I've seen very few that have come in like, look, I'm just not going to handle my responsibility. I don't want to. By the time they get some information, I think it's an innate thing that's baked inside of us as humans, like a survival thing. We're connected to that child. I think I talked about it before. I think it's akin to you spending 9 months, planting a garden. You're tilling it, you're doing everything that needs to be done for it for that 9 months. And now when everything comes up, it sprouts, you never get to see it. Imagine that would do to you. You never get to see the fruits of kind of, what it is that you've done, or just kind of like, man, I wonder what my child would be like. So I think it takes an extreme emotional toil, on men when their children, are kept away from them.
No, that's good. I want to go back, talking about the divorce rate and looking at families, and it's gone up significantly since the 60s, especially if you go back even the 40s and 50s. I mean, gosh, I can't believe it's almost 100 years. But when I think about, and I can talk to this from from being a white man, but when I think about growing up and look at families of color, and I think I shared this with you. I mean, my first thoughts, like if you were to say, okay, growing up, how do you view a family of color? African American family, a black family. How do you what are your thoughts? What are the words that come to mind? Resilient, strong, loyal, and proud.
For sure.
Also, when you think about the family unit, it wasn't just mom, dad, and siblings. It was the uncles, the aunts, cousins, and sometimes it's friends that weren't related, but they might be called an aunt or an uncle or a cousin, and they weren't, but they certainly felt like it. Your thoughts on that? Like me saying that, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, so I think it's no question. I mean, you could look back and black people, we wouldn't put our elders in homes and that sort of thing. When they got older, grandma would be living with us. You know, you had an
Yeah.
uncle in that back room back there who nobody ever saw, but he was taken care of. You know, and so I think, you know, a couple of things happen. You know, I think the more we've gotten sort of ingrained into, you know, this American system in a sense, you know, climbing the corporate ladder, you know, and these things, the more selfish we've gotten, you know, and so we see these things go away. I think the thing to look at would be the Latino family, who they are super duper family oriented, but they've come
Yeah.
over with their culture, you know, they've come over with their work ethic, you know, they've come over, you know, just with that family base, you know, as more. And I think they're beautiful people, you know. But I think the thing to sort of watch out for is as they get more ingratiated into, you know, this American system, which a lot of it is capitalism. You know, I think there's certain things that come with capitalism, you know, that just these unintended consequences, you know. So I think we saw it in the 50s. People needed to stay together, you know, to make it. You know, now you see it where it's not quite as important like we talked about earlier. So, but I agree with you, you know, and I think this economy may force people to get back. They say now it's a real trend. I think it's been since COVID. Is that I can't remember, they have a term for it, but people who were divorced or separated but were still living together because economically they could not afford to live apart, you know.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's something to be needed and to work together. There's value in that, in working together. You know, it may not always be the easiest thing, but in working together for a common goal, particularly around your children, you know. So, yeah, I agree with you, though.
Yeah. No, you're right. And, you know, on the side, I work with people that are going through a divorce in a group setting and that either recently divorced or have gone through. And you're that with the COVID, you're 100% correct. There's a lot of people that will come in and, you know, we've tried to make it work, or, you know, we'll talk to at the intake and they're thinking about it. And while they would have gotten divorced prior to, you know, or they're in a financial situation now where they can't do it, or
Right.
it's not the best for them to have a divorce. They're underwater with their house or whatever it may be. There's no equity. You know, you see that. How much do you think social media, the music, the media in general, and my least favorite, the Kardashians,
Man.
how much do you feel that is playing a part of destroying the family unit or devaluing the family unit?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's the most dangerous thing, particularly, like I said, when you're talking about young people who don't have any frame of reference from things past. I can remember when TikTok first came out and my daughter was watching it, and I was like, wow, these little 15-second clips, that's going to kill your attention span to be able to watch, you know, something for 30, 40 minutes. We sat and watched 2 hours and 30-minute movies, you know,
Yeah.
3 hours. You'd be like, wow, that was long, but you would sit there. They really can't sit down and watch, you know, a 45-minute explainer video on something. Now, they can probably watch somebody play Fortnite for 30 minutes because it's all this action happening and these things. And so I'm not going to blame them. It's a new way of learning. You know, there's probably other ways you can go about learning things, but this is their particular learning module behind the screen, a visual thing. You know, it's tough to get these kids to actually read a physical book. You know, they're not going to choose it on their own to read a physical book. So I think it's the most dangerous thing. That's social media. I think when you get into the music, it's incredibly influential, you know, to these young people. The visuals that have come with it and everything. It's unbelievable. So, and I know we sound like old guys mentioning that sort of thing, but we have a frame of reference. You know, we can tell you, hey, don't go down that path. You know, I remember a song by Gil Scott-Heron where it said, down some road, some one-way roads, there's no turning back. You know,
Yeah.
get yourself down in some of these holes and traps. And want to tell a quick story. It made me think about when you were talking about your son's kids at school. So, a kid on Z's basketball team. He told me, hey, Dad, you remember the kid such and such? He's like, yeah, he quit the team. I'm like, really? I was like, yeah. I was like, why? He was like, man, you know, he didn't feel like he was getting enough playing time and that sort of thing. And And as a father, if that happened, man, you got to work that out. You got to
Mm-hmm.
work it out, man. You got to stick in, figure out what happened. You know,
Mm-hmm.
ask coach what you can do. A father's gonna give him that lesson.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I was like, man, I was like, he's like, yeah, you know, it's kind of rough on him. I think his mom passed or something like that. I think he just lives with his older brother now or something like that. So you can see all this stuff
I
happening,
know, and I know exactly who you're talking about too,
right?
because I
It's
know
like
his older brother. Yeah.
we should see that, and we should give this kid some wraparound services to say, because you can see the path that this kid is probably gonna go down. There's only one or two choices now. If he has his phone up every day, and everybody's getting money, and everybody is so great and doing all of this stuff, and you know, kids scoring 30 points in their basketball games and the highlights he's seeing, what's gonna happen to his psyche? You
Yep.
know, it's A plus B equals C. So I think we just have to start connecting the dots and just be real about it, man. But yeah, this media stuff is doing a number on young people.
Yeah, I think it's horrible. You know, and we do sound like old guys, and we are. I think about when I was growing up and the different music coming out, and people would be like, "Oh, that's satanic. You can't listen to
Right.
that," or "Oh, they're dressed this way," or "Oh, they're insinuating sex." And now, I mean, you've got female rappers talking about
Yes.
eating ass and everything else, and it's like, oh my gosh, and
Yep. Yep.
you see the path they're going down, and yeah, I mean, do we sound like the old guys? Maybe. If you want to say old, maybe you want to just say wise.
Right. Right. But it almost seems systematic, like they did it with the guys already, you know, with the male rappers, they did it already. You can see these guys now catching RICO charges, rappers getting killed left and right as
Mm-hmm.
never before. Again, this is all this generation knows. Rappers get killed. When Tupac and Biggie got killed, that was a huge thing. It was a
Yeah.
20 gap before another rapper got killed, you know. But now you can see, okay, we got the guys, and now they're working on the females now. With this is just an onslaught of female rap that's coming out. That's, you
So,
know,
do you think you said it? Do you think it's a systematic thing?
I don't think it's intentional. I almost think as humans, we almost have a death wish to destroy ourselves for whatever reason, you know. So I just think it's this consciousness that exists that's out here that you have to tap into some type of higher frequency to avoid. You know, it's like we're trying to destroy ourselves. We can all see it, like you're right. The wise men. But when are the wise men are gonna step up and say, "This is not we're not doing this"?
Yeah.
No, I can remember. It was the rapper that was pushing back. And again, the other thing we have to think about with young people is adolescent brain development. Their brains are not developed. You know, boys in particular are going to do risky behavior. They're going to be involved in these types of things. So we have to protect them. You know, like I always said about my youngest, so I'm like, boy, I had to do everything I could from 1 to 6 to keep you alive. This kid would do anything, jump off stuff and, fall out of places. I'd have to catch him. I'm like, that's my only job right now is to keep you alive, kid. And so,
Man, he's a cute one too. I tell you what, he looks like a handful. He is, but
yeah.
oh, what a great kid though, man. I mean, he is. He is. As
Yeah.
frustrating as he might be at times, I bet you he gives you some of your biggest smiles too.
Oh man, no question, man. He'll just say some stuff, man. And I thought about it. Shoot, I'm glad I didn't stop it too, because that guy there, man. But again, in thinking about this stuff, I don't think it's this nefarious plan. People are used to. They have an interview with Lear Cohen, who was the head of Def Jam for many years, one of the
Mm-hmm.
largest rap labels that are out there. He's on the Breakfast Club. And Charlemagne the guy, one of the hosts, asked him, he was like, man, how can you justify, some of the music that you've put out? Some of these, and now he's gotten into where they, after leaving Def Jam, I think his label is 300 or something like that, where they signed some of the, raunchiest rap guys, most quote unquote make themselves look dangerous kind of guys. And so he was like, hey, he's like, my family has to eat. He said as callous as possible, but the difference is, and this is what I've always
Wow.
said about the rap stuff, is some people, particularly black people, we have to go back and live in these communities where you've now turned these children into war soldiers, children of war. You've put that mentality in them, they're breaking into cars. And, imagine you're a hardworking person that what you could afford was a Kia. And now they have videos online about how to break into Kias. And this is how simple it is. And you come out and your car is gone. And you doing
Yeah.
everything you can to make it. And so it's just really, really sad that, we don't see it as a whole and as a society to say this just is not good for us as a whole.
Yeah, my personal feeling is we've gotten so much away from God. We've
Yes.
gotten so much the spirituality that we as a society we have. I think that has a lot to do with it, And then you look at kind of going on what you're saying. The more extreme you can be, whether it's especially online, the more extreme you can be, whether it's through your actions, a TikTok, a song, whatever it may be, the more likes you're going to get, the more you can push it. And we're seeing that. And I do believe that these minds are being warped, by listening to this, by watching these, and it's, oh, what can I do? What, and there's nobody there
Exactly.
to change
That's the
things.
point. If it's nobody there, see, my sons listen to some of the music, right? But I'm there to explain to them, yo, that's not cool. Listen to what he's saying right there. You need to understand that. But if mom is upstairs cooking and she's doing her stuff and she's trying to get their school lunches ready for the next day and she's doing all this stuff, she doesn't have time to monitor what's really happening. It takes two parents, right? It takes two people. But I can explain to my sons. You remember that kid that used to work, that used to be in my program over in Fulton County? This is what happened with him. You keep listening to that. This is what they're telling you about. So you
Yeah.
need somebody to kind of decode that stuff for these young people.
Can I hope you don't mind me asking you this question. I'm throwing this out there. I hesitate to ask you. I feel like I can ask you anything. And if you don't like answering it, we can edit this out. How do you talk to your two sons? How do you talk to your children about race and of being? How do you talk to them about that of being a person of color and future expectations, all of that? What to expect, what to prepare for?
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking you that?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, and I think, it would lead some insight, into, because I think there are a lot of things that as black people that we know and understand that I think white people in this country, and I think even other people in this country, other people of color like Latinos may not understand, right? And so my biggest thing is always from a moral standpoint is that people are people. You have good people and you have bad people, right? That's going to be the first primary message. But there's a societal and systematic thing. It's why I think it's almost this innate thing that I think that are inside of people, that's almost divisive that you can't even really control. There's a book called My Grandmother's Hands where a guy, I believe he's a psychologist, and he wrote a book about it. He says the way that black people and white people have been socialized in this country, it leads to certain things. He was like, some of these police officer shootings and things like that, it may not be that this guy was racist or something and had hatred for this young person, but he's been trained and conditioned in his mind. If I see an 11-year-old or a 13-year-old, no matter how old it is, black kid, that dresses hip hop, in my mind, he's already a suspect, right? Whereas as black people, I can look at a black kid in particular, and I can glean some things about him, whether what this kid is. Probably some of it is the work that I've done and that sort of thing. But to answer your question the best I can, I think I try to prepare my children particularly my sons, for what is really out here, for what you have to be careful for. For example, police interactions, as they get older and begin to start driving and things like that. The thing is to make it home. To me, you don't have to prove yourself to be big and bad, and and that sort of thing. But you want to make it home and then deal with that stuff later. But I think you have to be honest. But you want to, you don't want to jade children. Where they go in, kind of looking for the worst in people. But I do think I've had my son, particularly my youngest. I told you he's a piece of work. When he's come home and said, "Hey man, Dad, my art teacher, I don't know what's going on, but he asked me. I was the only one. He asked me to clean up 3 times this week."
Really?
So he saw that from the lens of, why am I being asked And the teacher, and sometimes what it is, we do have to check what our own biases are, right? We all have biases. It's no question, I may see, or, I think one of the things
And
that
he
happens,
goes to a predominantly white elementary school. Your youngest
Yep.
does, just for people listening.
Yep. So, so I think people have to be sensitive about those kinds of things, from other people's lenses. So yeah, it's a tough conversation to have, but it's necessary. Yeah. Yep. That's the best way I would break it down.
Interesting. I wonder when the boys were being raised, I wonder how I'd redo it. But we never discussed, and I've brought it up before. We never discussed race, and we never, we never identified somebody by their race. Meaning, it wouldn't be, I don't know, who was that black kid you were sitting next to? Mm-hmm. It would be, who is the kid in the purple Under Armour shirt you were sitting next to? Mm-hmm. And I really think it was 4th or 5th grade. And that was, for the longest time. And I never heard, it was never black. There was never white. There was none of that. Which I thought was beautiful because they never said, when they were talking about their friends, and I'm like, well, who is that? And they're, I never heard, well, yeah, he's the tall black kid that I hang out with. They never said that. But then what I noticed too, and what I had to educate them on, which was really eye-opening, once they did get exposed to it, which was later on in elementary school, and which was, honestly, Javin, it was beautiful because, to look through a kid's eyes is just beautiful because they don't see the skin color.
No.
All they see, honestly, all they saw was, for the most part, it was how good of an athlete or that person was, or how much they sucked. That is really kind of how they graded kids, and but it was beautiful to see. But then what we did was expose them to what different races might be faced with and what they are faced with because of their skin color. And man, you talk about eye-opening. And just, and I had some friends, some African-American friends that shared with them stories. And they were just like dumbfounded that, and I was not making them feel bad by any means. I wasn't, making them feel bad about their skin color, but letting them know the challenges and the ignorance that society had and sometimes still has. It's still, I don't, you tell me, I don't think it's as big as it was, or as widespread as it was, but it's still very clear out there. It definitely is. But letting them know the different challenges people face. And I wonder at times how I would go back and do that differently. But man, for that moment, when they saw everybody the same, and I think they still do. They both have especially my oldest, very diverse group of friends. Mm-hmm. It's never, skin color's never brought up, which is beautiful. Still.
Yeah. So and I think we're in a pretty good position where our children can go to some schools where they're exposed to a variety. That's what I'd always tell my children even now. Like even when I was in high school, I had friends of all types. Some people were considered nerds, and some people I can remember, people associated me because I was an athlete that I would only be friends with the basketball players and that sort of thing. But you find that people are people, man. They're funny guys that are nerds, you know what I'm saying? And, they're funny guys that are fat guys, whatever it might be, man. You just take somebody how they come and you enjoy what it is. I have friends who could draw really well because I like to draw. And so I'd be amazed by their talents. And so, but that leads me to the point. I think it's about exposure. Us being exposed to each other. I think us being in a society where oftentimes we're so we worship separately in too many cases. You know what I'm saying? We live in communities, that are separate. But I think what we find so often is, man, when we get the chance to be around each other, it's like, man, we really like each other.
Yeah.
Across the board. You admire some things. I think, as black people, one of our things, we think like white people don't have any problems. It's just not true.
Yeah. No, it's not.
you know, so
Yeah, we do.
man, and so I think it's just being able to have open and honest conversations and being able to learn from each other, man. And you'll find like, yo, it's a lot of cool people that are out here, but I think we have to come together to solve some of these societal issues that are affecting everyone. One of the things I think, black people look at, for example, was when there was a heroin epidemic, right? On the west side of Chicago in particular, I can remember those open air markets and sort of thing, heroin, there wasn't a call from government for any type of action. There weren't any lawsuits or anything like that. But when it became an opioid addiction and it started affecting people outside of black communities, there's all this action around it. So as black people, we've seen those types of things happen. And that's what's made us really distrustful of society and government, and looking at those types of things. But I think there's certain things that we know kind of innately that we've seen, from redlining, man, to drugs being pushed in our community, the whole Oliver North thing, So imagine you're dealing with...
Totally agree. I could go down that, talk to you about that for hours, and the crack cocaine epidemic.
Yes. And I think it's a power thing. Oftentimes it's like somebody trying to use their power, to take advantage of people who are weak, who couldn't do anything. But shame on us in lots of cases. It's almost like what I'm talking about now. As a society, we're just letting this stuff happen to us now. We see the pathway our children are going down now, and it's all of our children are affected now. So maybe, we'll take some time, to address some of these societal issues in America.
You said people that are weak. Let me tell you something. And I didn't bring you on here for this to be a race discussion. Mm-hmm. Is there a stronger class of people than the black community? I mean, honestly, you think about everything that,
sure,
the black community has gone through over the years. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, I think back to the clip you sent me, and it opened my eyes up even more, and I went and dug into it. Okay. Black community couldn't have banks. They couldn't deposit money at white banks. So what they do, they created their own. They didn't have hotels. What they do, they created their own. They didn't have school systems. They couldn't go to school systems. So the same school system, what they do, they created their own. How did the education turn out? A lot better than the whites. Mm-hmm. But and ones who have, and that's just in, if you want to say recent times, in less than 100 years, and go back even further. But that's probably one of the strongest, most resilient group of people I've ever seen.
Yep, no question. I agree. I agree 100%. And that's how I think our conversation started, was talking about, Martin Luther King said it. He was like, integration. He's like, did I send my people into a burning building, by pushing for integration, So I think what we saw when integration took place, not done properly, it weakened our economic base. It weakened our political base, and so, you look at it and you think about these things, it's kind of these unintended consequences. But our education, has gone down. I think, marriage rates, everything. I think a lot of that plays into integration. I'm not saying the strategy would be long-term to stay separate, but, we've given up our economic advancement, no longer own the businesses in our community. You see where Asians, come in and open up, whether it's the nail shop or it's the Chinese food shop, where the Arabs open up the donut shops and, gas stations, which is awesome.
Liquor stores, whatever it may be.
Yep, liquor stores. And so, you just see this and it just makes you wonder, man, kind of what happened. But then when you also look and see where a lot of black people, it shows. Something came out the other day where loans are denied, way too often, kind of systematically. So some of that stuff I do believe systematically is still in play, and I think it's to avoid competition more than anything.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense, and yeah, that does make sense. I'm going to kind of jump and be respectful of your time. Have you heard? Do you know the artist Dax? Do you know what I'm talking about? Kind of a rapper. He's got, you got to listen to it. You might not like it.
Okay,
but he's got a song out called "To Be a Man."
Okay.
He's got different remixes. Darius Rucker's on one of them. Different people have gone in and done remixes with it. But listen to it. And his name's Dax, and I think he is from Canada.
Okay.
We'd love to have him on, but his song "To Be a Man," would love to hear your thoughts on that. But definitely positive. I meant to tell you about him off air and just get your thoughts.
Yeah.
But Javin, I appreciate you coming on. You have, if you look back at your history, you've been giving back since you've been able to work. I mean, you have truly been trying to either help others, and it's all helping others, whether it's helping those that are have gone down the wrong road, or trying to help people that through unfortunate circumstances, whatever it may be. And I think that is I think you're such a model of what we as men need to do. And one, you're a wonderful dad. I mean, I've seen it. But you also give a lot of your time to do that. And, we've talked about this and talked about it with others as well. And, I think it's up to dads. We're in a very challenging stage right now. I think we're at an inflection point that I don't want to say there's no turning back, but man, we're getting close where we as men have to step up. We have to assume responsibility, not just for our own children, but for others as well, others that might be in unfortunate circumstances. And I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate all you're doing. I know it's not easy to devote, to be the dad that you are, and then devote so much time to others and to serve as, such a great role model and mentor. But thank you. I mean, definitely thank you.
Yep. No, I appreciate it, man. Just trying to pass the blessings on, and I agree 100%. As men in particular, if we can step up and, and lend our talents to society. And I think the beautiful thing about is men, when we come together, the brotherhood of men is such a powerful thing. I think we've, been duped to get away from it. Guys don't even sit together and watch football anymore. Everybody's watching in their own living room.
It's true.
There's power in men just being together and coming together to solve some of these societal issues. So I really, really hope that we take our place soon.
Well, I appreciate it. Anything else you want to cover?
No,
I think we kind of jumped around.
Yep. No, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the
man. I appreciate it, and you were so well received last time. And I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to come back on again. And but I do appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey everybody! Thank you all again for listening to Dad Dad's podcast. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube and Instagram. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes, and we will see you all next time.